In my last video on prepping your home, I talked about how you can prep your home and your food supply inside of your home for any possible disaster. But in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to use a local farmer to prep a food supply for you for the coming season, which I know sounds a little bit confusing, but I will explain what I'm talking about here. So what I would encourage you to do is to jump on, there's a bunch of websites. Here's one, eatwild.com. I know that we're on there. A lot of farms are on there, and they'll actually just list farms. You can search list farms in your area, and they'll list what they sell as well as their practices. They'll have a little, like, I think it's 50-word blurb, and farms renew that every single year. So they should be somewhat up to date. Find a farm near you, even if you don't totally love their practices, as long as they're, kind of good enough, humane enough, or clean enough, for organic enough for what you're interested in, because you want to start building up some sort of local, truly local to you food supply. So you, in a scenario where you couldn't get something shipped in, or you couldn't drive 50 miles or whatever to get some food, if the grocery store run out, you would have something built up near you. So consider that farms right now are, let's say maybe we have, on a typical month of orders right now in the winter, we have maybe 35 orders, 35 different customers. In the summer, that sometimes bumps up to 50, but still we are planning to feed about that many people. But in a scenario where our local towns, even as rural as we are, if the grocery stores ran out of, let's say, just 50% of the food that they have, for, whatever reason, a natural disaster, we're having grid issues, gas prices, who knows, people just start bulking up, quite a bit, like we saw with COVID. Whatever happens, the grocery store runs out of quite a bit of what they have. I'm not going to have the supply for those 5,000 people, let's say, that are local to me, to feed them meat and produce, right? It takes me, anywhere from, let's say, 3 months for something really quick to grow, anywhere up to a year to grow a product for someone to eat. So think about that. That is the amount of planning and preparation that a farmer is going to have to do. If they're planning for about 50 customers a week at the most, they're probably not going to be able to supply their actual local area. And that, to me, is the most natural food system, where the local farmers can support the customers that are, basically within walking distance, or if you live as rural as me, maybe within like a 15-minute driving distance of the farms. But that's just not the scenario that we're in today. So my suggestion is to find somebody near you that you can start supporting. Now, maybe you don't love their practices, so maybe you only purchase 2 pounds of something from them a week. Just start supporting them on some level so they can start counting on you, so you can start bringing up their demand, and they will start supplying a little bit more. And if everybody in the area did that, they would be able to produce a lot more. So if you were ever in a situation where they were your only option for food, they would have something for you rather than nothing. That is my suggestion. Outside of that, I really suggest you to buy in bulk with a farmer that you, obviously you're going to get a lot of something. I have my computer screen for additional lighting here. That's how technic I am. So a farmer that has practices that if you're going to buy a lot of something, you actually agree with, right? So if you're going to buy a whole cow, don't necessarily buy it from a farmer where they feed a little bit of grain at the end and you're not okay with that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you buy something in bulk, buy it from a farmer, of course, get your money's worth, buy what you want from a farmer that is doing the practices that you want. You can do that, and you can contact them. Some farms even have early registration, or you can just get on a list letting them know, hey, this is about how much meat I want when. And when you contact them, or maybe even on their website, they're going to let you know when they harvest. Some farms harvest year round. Some farms are just having a really hard time getting any sort of processing dates, so they kind of do whatever they can. And then we really plan a year ahead, and we process typically only when the grass is green, because we want the cattle to be on that fresh grass and their meat to be full of those, fresh grass nutrients when you get it. So we typically only process July, because they're going to start going on grass actually soon here. It's mid-March. So maybe, let's say, depending on the year, they'll go on fresh grass from hay, let's say in April. So by July, they've been on fresh grass for a couple months, and they have the high omega-3 count, et cetera, et cetera. They'll have good nutrients. So that is when we'll process. They'll end up getting off the grass in like December. The grass actually stays alive longer than I think most people think. So we will process typically from July through December. If we can get another slot in January, they'll just be off the grass for a week or two. Maybe we'll take that as well. So farmers will let you know when they're processing, and you'll be able to say, hey, yeah, get me on your list, or how can I make a reservation, or can I do a pre-order? And if you do that even a year in advance, they'll be essentially booking you a cow a whole year in advance. That cow's probably already born. So for them, they already are thinking about that. They just don't know who necessarily is going to buy that cow. But they're already paying for that cow. They might have paid for a bull, or they're definitely paying for feed and rent and minerals and everything else. So if you can support them in that way, and if you could do some sort of pre-order or registration, or we call it a reservation, we don't actually typically charge people, but you just put in a reservation on our site, and we charge $50 per eighth of cow. And that typically covers, well, not anymore because it's super expensive now, but typically covers the processing fees for that eighth of cow, just so you know. That's how we figure it out. And we just keep those on our website saved in a certain spot. So as soon as we are coming up to process that cow, we also have an Excel spreadsheet of when people put in those reservations, so we know who is getting what when. And that's really helpful to us. That saves us from having to make a post that's like, hey, next week we're bringing a cow to butcher. Who wants it? And then people just, send in emails. We are able to have a list going ahead of time, and that saves us a lot of work and time as well. And it's always good to know that something is already sold when we already have a date for something, sometimes right now a year in advance or even longer. So that is something that you, as somebody who has a home, maybe in the city or burbs, you don't have a cow in your backyard, and you can't have a cow in your backyard, but that's a way that you can start to reserve your food supply, okay? And they may do something like that with produce. They may only do farmers markets. Communicate with them and just ask, hey, do you offer something like this for everything that you sell? Is there a way that I can get some sort of membership or CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture, so that I know that I'm kind of banking my food supply prior? Regarding produce, we have a CSA, and I am planning for that basically the fall after the last one ends, but I'm buying seeds and starts for that in January or before January. So I'm planning for that, even though that may not start till mid-June. I'm planning for that then, and then I have to start seeds the 1st of February. So keep that in mind, that farmers are planning early, and you can too. Another way that you can just kind of get in good with them is to say, hey, is there any way that I can volunteer? Is there anything that you maybe need help with every single week? A lot of farms, if you say, hey, can I volunteer and bring my kids? They might be like, no, because they're worried that they might have to kind of babysit you. And most farmers already feel like they're totally strapped for time. So make it clear to them if you're willing to make an ongoing commitment. Maybe it's just 1 hour a month. So say the first Saturday of the month from 9 to 10 a.m., I'm willing to come and help you do something on the farm. It might be sweeping the barn. It might be picking up eggs. It could be whatever. But doing the same thing so that they won't have to train you in a bunch of different things. You're not going to do the entire morning chores. Might get you a yes out of them instead of, hey, can I help with whatever? But doing that, you'll develop a relationship with them, and they will more than likely, be more open to just keeping you on the list of, first come, first serve, and you would be the first when they have food available. So these are ideas just to consider as you are trying to prep for a more stable food supply, and as we try to create a more stable food system for all of us. To me, this makes a lot of sense. To me, this is very, very smart compared to just hoping things are at the grocery store when we go there to get them. And for us, at least, this is definitely the method that we're going to continue using and the path that we're going to continue walking down, because again, I think that it makes a lot of sense for both the farmer and the customer. And I like that relationship element, that I can educate people about how we grow the food and how long it takes. And I also love to have volunteers as well, but sometimes I'm a mom and I have to watch a lot of kids, so I can't have tons of volunteers. I would love to have like a Sunday morning volunteer thing where we have tea and have volunteers out to the garden, but I live very rural too. So these are just some suggestions of what you can do to essentially build up a food supply that isn't even on your property yet, right? You don't have to worry about a deep freezer yet. You will next year when you get the cow, but right now you're just banking it in the future. And if you can kind of get to know how much food that you use in a certain amount of time, you can plan this out quite a bit in advance where you are keeping your freezer full, but not over full, where you have to buy a new one, and constantly have a food supply in the works reserved for you. So even if things totally hit the fan, you will know that you have something for yourself. So this is just a suggestion from me. I'm a farmer, and even if I wasn't, I would definitely be doing this with, or even if definitely if I wasn't, I would be doing this with somebody just to feel like I had a little bit more of a secure food supply for myself and my family. So I hope these tips are helpful and give you just a couple of ideas. Talk to your local farmer and find out what they're interested in, how they're doing, and what they really need help with, maybe what they need to sell, what makes money for them, and just how you can support them so that they can keep their doors open. So they're there for you now, but especially in a time where you would really, really need them. All right. Have a good night.